They sealed my cabin gate without asking. An HOA notice. New rules. No access after dark. I stood there staring at that lock, realizing they decided my land wasn't really mine anymore. They said it was temporary. They said it was for safety. They said I had no say. What they didn't realize was that the only way out of that mountain community crossed a narrow wooden bridge. A bridge everyone used. A bridge everyone assumed was public. It wasn't. My name was on the title. So I didn't fight them. I didn't remove the lock. I waited for them to drive home. I didn't buy that cabin to make money. I didn't buy it to flip it. I bought it because I wanted silence. After 15 years of city noise, deadlines, and neighbors who never stopped talking, I wanted something simple. Trees. Wind. Dirt roads. A place where no one knocked on my door unless something was on fire. The listing was small. Almost easy to miss. Remote mountain cabin. Limited access. Quiet community. That last line should have warned me. It didn't. The cabin sat at the edge of a ridge. Pine trees everywhere. A narrow gravel road led up to it. One lane. Old. Rough. But solid. At the bottom of that road was a wooden bridge. One lane too. Old beams. Thick steel bolts. It crossed a deep creek that ran year-round. The realtor mentioned it casually. Bridge is privately maintained by local owners. That was it. No drama. No red flags. I asked about HOAs. She shook her head. There is one nearby. But your property isn't part of it. I checked. Twice. County records matched. My land was outside their boundary. I closed 2 months later. The first year was perfect. No neighbors bothering me. No rules taped to my door. No meetings. No fines. I fixed the roof. Cleaned the well. Replaced part of the fence. I spent weekends splitting wood and evenings sitting on the porch listening to nothing. Sometimes people drove past my place. Slow. Curious. Mostly weekend residents from the development downhill. They waved. I waved back. Everything felt respectful. Then the development grew. New houses. New pavement. New street signs. And eventually, a new HOA board. I noticed the changes slowly. First, a small sign appeared near the bridge. Community access, 10 miles per hour. I didn't like it. But I didn't touch it. Then a speed bump. Then reflective markers. Then a camera box. That's when I checked the county map again. Still my land. Still my bridge. But I said nothing. That was my mistake. One Friday evening, late fall, I drove up after work. It was already dark. Cold. I wanted to unload supplies and sleep. Instead, my headlights caught something silver. A metal seal across my gate. Chain. Lock. Bright yellow notice zip-tied to the fence. I got out of the truck slowly. My heart was already beating fast. That feeling you get when something is wrong but you're still hoping it's a mistake. The paper said, Notice of Non-Compliance Access Restricted per HOA Emergency Safety Rules. Gate sealed pending compliance review. I read it 3 times. Emergency Safety Rules. My land. My gate. No phone number. Just an HOA logo. I stood there in the cold for a long minute, listening to the creek below the bridge. Wind in the trees. That place had never felt less like mine. I drove back down the mountain. Furious. Confused. Tired. The next morning, I called the HOA office. A woman answered. Calm. Professional. She told me the board had voted to implement new access rules due to increased traffic risks. I told her my property wasn't part of the HOA. She paused. Then said, We control the access roads. I told her they didn't own my gate. Another pause. She said, "You can submit a compliance request." That was the moment I understood. They weren't confused. They weren't mistaken. They were testing me. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I asked one question. Who owns the bridge? She said, "It's considered community infrastructure." I thanked her and hung up. Then I pulled out my closing documents. And I smiled for the first time that weekend. Because buried in page 14, under easements and access notes, was a single line most people ignored. Parcel includes private bridge structure and access road. Signed. Stamped. Recorded. That bridge wasn't community anything. It was mine. And suddenly, the sealed gate didn't feel like a loss. It felt like an invitation. The HOA meeting was scheduled for Tuesday night. Open forum. Residents welcome. I didn't plan on going at first. I wanted to think. To understand how far they were willing to push. But curiosity won. I parked near the community hall and walked in quietly. About 30 people sat in folding chairs. Mostly retirees. A few young couples. The board sat up front behind a long table. 5 of them. Matching folders. Matching expressions. The woman from the phone call was there. She smiled when she saw me. Not warmly. Politely. Like someone who believed the situation was already decided. The meeting started with routine stuff. Landscaping complaints. Parking violations. Trash bins left out too long. Then she cleared her throat. Next item. Emergency access regulations. A slide appeared behind them. A map. My road was highlighted. They talked about safety. About liability. About standardizing access times. About controlling non-resident traffic. Then they said it. Effective immediately, all access roads within the community will be subject to HOA authority. I raised my hand. The room got quiet. I introduced myself. Gave my cabin address. A few heads turned. I asked a simple question. Under what authority did you seal my private gate? The president leaned forward. He had a calm voice. Practiced. We're acting in the interest of community safety. I asked again. Do you own my land? He smiled thinly. No, but... I didn't let him finish. Do you own the bridge? That one landed harder. They looked at each other. Papers shuffled. He said, the bridge services the community. I nodded. Serves, yes. Owns, no. Murmurs in the room. I didn't accuse. I didn't raise my voice. I just said, I have the deed. That was enough. They moved on quickly. Promised to review the matter. Promised to communicate soon. 2 days later, I got an email. They'd unsealed my gate. Temporarily. But attached was a list of expected compliance measures. Access hours. Maintenance fees. Security monitoring. Approval requirements. All for land they didn't own. I replied once. My property is not subject to HOA rules. Please remove any signage or infrastructure from my land. No response. Instead, more signs appeared. That's when I stopped playing defense. I hired a local surveyor. Old guy. Knew the mountain well. He came out with maps older than the development. He walked the bridge slowly. Smiled. This is yours, he said. Always was. I had him mark the boundaries clearly. Stakes. Flags. Legal markers. Then I contacted a lawyer. Not aggressive. Not dramatic. Just precise. We sent a certified letter. Included copies of the deed. Survey. County records. And one sentence at the end. Unauthorized use of private infrastructure may be suspended. That's when the HOA panicked. Emails. Calls. Let's discuss. Misunderstanding. Community harmony. I didn't respond. Because they still hadn't apologized. And they still hadn't removed the signs. So instead, I made one change. I scheduled bridge maintenance. Perfectly legal. Perfectly documented. And perfectly timed. The bridge wasn't fancy. No concrete. No guardrails. Just heavy timber and steel brackets. Built decades ago. Solid. But like anything old, it needed care. I posted a notice at both ends. Private bridge. Temporary closure for safety inspection. I gave a date. I gave a time window. I followed the law. The closure started at 9 a.m. Monday. By 9:15, my phone was ringing. By 9:30, traffic backed up. That bridge wasn't just a shortcut. It was the only exit. I watched from my porch as cars lined up. Confused. Angry. Some drivers got out. Walked to the barrier. Read the sign. Looked up at my cabin. The HOA president showed up around 10. He didn't smile this time. He asked me to open the bridge. I told him the inspector was coming. He said, "You're disrupting the community." I said, "You disrupted my gate first." He threatened legal action. I handed him my lawyer's card. Then I went back inside. By noon, the county inspector arrived. He did a full check. Took photos. Noted where. Approved the closure until minor reinforcements were added. All legitimate. The HOA had no leverage. By day 2, the tone changed. Emails apologized. Calls softened. They offered to pay maintenance. To buy the bridge. I declined. I didn't want money. I wanted respect. On day 3, they finally removed every sign. Every camera. Every marker from my land. They issued a written apology. Only then did I reopen the bridge. Slowly. Calmly. No drama. Just karma. The aftermath was quiet. Awkward. Polite. HOA meetings became shorter. Rules became suggestions. People waved again. But differently now. With understanding. The board never challenged me again. A year later, the president resigned. A new board formed. Smaller. Local. Reasonable. They asked permission before decisions. They respected boundaries. And my cabin stayed silent. Just how I wanted it. Power doesn't always come from shouting. Sometimes it comes from paperwork. From patience. From knowing when to wait. They tried to control what they didn't own. I didn't punish them. I just reminded them. And every time I cross that bridge now, I remember something important. Land isn't just dirt. It's rights. And silence is worth defending.